there was a place where the greatest minds of Earth gathered to decode reality. A vault of scrolls said to hold the secrets of the stars, the soul, and the unseen laws of the world. It was called the Library of Alexandria, but what it truly was dangerous. They say it held 500,000 scrolls, teachings from Egypt, Babylon, Atlantis, texts older than religion, older than kings, knowledge that could elevate a man or collapse an empire. But then it burned. Not once, not twice, over centuries by accident and by design. And what was lost wasn't just science or history, it was control. Because buried in those flames were truths the rulers of the world could never allow to survive. Among them, the Gnostics. A sect that claimed the world we live in is not real, but a prison, and that the God worshipped by kings and priests was the deceiver. And alongside their teachings, another weapon was lost. The key to symbols, geometry, ritual, sound, the mechanics of reality encoded into language, and later used to shape human minds without them ever knowing. This is not a story of ancient books. This is the blueprint of how your reality was rewritten. The Gnostics and the forbidden architecture of reality. Before the rise of institutional religion, before the empires crowned their gods and built temples in their names, there existed another thread of truth, quiet, mystical, and deeply subversive. These were the Gnostics. The term Gnostic comes from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge, not the kind found in books or sermons, but direct, inner revelation. The Gnostics didn't claim to believe in truth. They claimed to experience it. And what they experienced was so disruptive to the rising powers of the ancient world that it had to be erased, burned, banned, rewritten. They weren't a single religion, but a collection of sects and initiatory schools, many of which drew from ancient Egyptian cosmology, Babylonian mysticism, early Christianity, Zoroastrian dualism, and Platonic philosophy. Their teachings were preserved in secret, passed between desert mystics, buried in urns, or hidden in the scroll-lined shelves of the Library of Alexandria. The Gnostics believed that the universe, as we perceive it, is an illusion, a prison, meticulously constructed by an ignorant and malevolent entity they called the Demiurge. According to them, this false creator is not the ultimate God, but a counterfeit, a tyrant who fashioned the physical world to trap souls in matter, keeping them blind, obedient, and asleep. In Gnostic cosmology, the true source, what they called the monad, the ineffable origin of all things, exists beyond form, beyond duality, beyond even thought. The monad is perfect, infinite, silent. It never created the world. It emanated layers of spiritual beings, divine aspects of itself, known as aeons. One of these aeons, Sophia, Greek for wisdom, is said to have given birth to the Demiurge, not out of malice, but through an error, a fragmentation. The Demiurge, unaware of the higher realms, believed himself to be the only God. He shaped the material universe in ignorance and pride, proclaiming, "I am the only God, and there is no other beside me." This line, echoed in multiple religious texts, is, in the Gnostic view, the confession of a cosmic tyrant. To the Gnostics, our world, with its suffering, death, and decay, is not the creation of a benevolent deity. It is the corrupted design of a being who feeds on control and worship. The material world is not holy. It is a distraction. And the systems of power that govern it, political, religious, social, are extensions of the Demiurge's design. But all is not lost. Buried within each human being, the Gnostics taught, is a divine spark, a fragment of the true source. It is the memory of where we came from, and it is the key to escape. The goal of Gnosticism was liberation through gnosis, the awakening of that inner spark, not through obedience, not through rituals or intermediaries, but through direct inner revelation. One did not need priests. One did not need temples. The body was the temple. The soul was the path. This was radical. It meant every human had access to the divine without hierarchy. It meant the rulers had no authority over the sacred. And it meant that the entire structure of empire, spiritual and political, was a lie. No wonder they were hunted. As early Christianity gained political power, especially after aligning with the Roman Empire, it began to purge its rivals. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD established orthodoxy, one God, one Son, one church, and everything else became heresy. Gnostic texts were burned. Their leaders were killed or exiled. Their names were dragged through history as deceivers. But some survived. In 1945, near Nag Hammadi in Egypt, a farmer digging for fertilizer discovered a sealed jar. Inside were 13 leather-bound codices containing over 50 ancient Gnostic texts, untouched for 1,600 years. These include the Gospel of Thomas, the Apocryphon of John, the Gospel of Truth, and the Hypostasis of the Archons. These writings are not moralistic rules. They are maps, cryptic, poetic, often symbolic, pointing inward. They suggest that Jesus was not a savior through death, but a revealer of knowledge, that his teachings were metaphysical codes meant to activate the divine spark in others. In the Gospel of Thomas, he says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." This isn't about sin and punishment. It's about memory, inner recognition, a call to wake up. The Gnostics viewed the soul's journey not as one of judgment, but of remembering. The soul is trapped in a cycle of reincarnation, constantly returning to the prison of flesh until it awakens and escapes the illusion. Death is not salvation, awareness is. And so, the Gnostics encoded their knowledge in symbols and metaphors, hidden from the authorities who would destroy them. Many of these teachings, including maps of the aeons, the structure of reality, the identity of the archons, were likely stored in places like the Library of Alexandria. The destruction of that library wasn't just the loss of books, it was the erasure of escape routes. Because if a population knows it's imprisoned, it becomes dangerous. And if that population begins to awaken, not through rebellion, but through realization, then the entire architecture of control begins to fracture. The Gnostics believed that awakening was contagious. One soul remembering could light 1,000 others. This is why their texts were burned. This is why their scrolls disappeared. Not because they were false, but because they were effective, and perhaps still are. What if the system you trust, the world you've been told is real, was never meant to liberate you? What if it was designed to keep you asleep? And what if the key to remembering was hidden, not in a temple, not in a church, but deep within your own forgotten knowing? The Gnostics knew, and so did those who burned their words.
Symbol systems and mind control. The language of the hidden architects.
The ancients didn't write to communicate. They wrote to encode. Before alphabets, before language became linear and commercial, symbols were sacred, containers of multi-dimensional meaning. Geometry wasn't simply mathematics. It was the blueprint of the universe. Numbers weren't quantities, they were forces. And symbols weren't illustrations, they were keys. To the initiates of the mystery schools, symbols were never just decorations. They were portals, systems designed to activate memory in the soul. A spiral didn't just represent motion. It mirrored the unfolding of time, consciousness, and creation itself. The triangle didn't just mean hierarchy. It was the trinity of birth, death, and rebirth. And in the heart of this symbolic tradition lay sacred geometry. Patterns like the flower of life, the golden ratio, the vesica piscis. Found in the architecture of temples, encoded into the art of pyramids, mirrored in the patterns of nature and even DNA. But this knowledge wasn't public. It was held in secrecy by priesthoods and initiates, passed through symbols, gestures, glyphs, and labyrinthine architecture. The ancients believed that only those who were spiritually prepared could receive the true meanings. To the uninitiated, symbols were empty shapes. To the awakened, they were maps of the inner and outer universe. This is where the power lies, in perception. Because a symbol has no power unless you understand its meaning. And yet, if you don't understand it, it can still influence you. It bypasses the rational mind and moves straight into the subconscious. This is what the modern world discovered and weaponized. When the Library of Alexandria fell, much of the esoteric knowledge of symbols and geometry was lost to the public, but not to everyone. It is believed that certain secret societies, inheritors of ancient wisdom, preserved fragments of this symbolic language. Over time, these symbols began to reappear in royal seals, in architecture, in currency, in religious iconography. They became tools of influence, instruments of subtle control. Today, we see these ancient shapes, eyes, pyramids, suns, spirals, embedded in corporate logos, government seals, and global financial institutions. They sit atop flags and temples. They hide in plain sight. And yet few ever ask, why are the same ancient symbols used by institutions that rule the world? Because symbols speak directly to the psyche. A logo isn't just branding. It's a sigil, a charged image meant to plant an emotion, an association, a belief. Over time, these images condition behavior. They instruct the subconscious on who to trust, what to desire, and who to obey. The architect of such a world isn't the tyrant in armor. It's the silent engineer who understands how the mind responds to imagery, repetition, and emotion. Religions used symbols to inspire awe and obedience. Corporations use them to drive consumption. Governments use them to create loyalty. All of this traces back to ancient knowledge. Knowledge that was meant to awaken, now used to sedate. The same spiral that once guided initiates through meditative ascent is now a hypnotic logo. The same eye that once symbolized divine vision now watches from atop pyramids on dollar bills. And the people don't resist because they no longer remember what the symbols really mean. In the ancient world, to learn a symbol was to unlock a force. In the modern world, we are surrounded by these forces, but blind to them. This is the perfect form of control, the invisible kind. You can't fight a symbol you don't see. You can't question a spell you don't believe exists. You can't break free from a language that was never taught to you, but is used against you every day. The architects of modern reality understand this. Whether through esoteric orders or inherited systems, they have become fluent in the language of control. And the scrolls in Alexandria, many of which are believed to have detailed the structure and science of symbolic influence, were likely destroyed not to erase history, but to erase tools. Because when the people can read the code, they stop obeying the illusion. And perhaps the greatest symbol of all is reality itself, a layered illusion, a projected story, built on symbols, myths, and beliefs carefully selected by those who came before. But like the Gnostics said, there is a way out, not by rejecting the symbols, but by remembering them, by learning to read what was once hidden, by reawakening the original language. Because when you speak the language of symbols, you begin to reshape the structure of reality, and that, above all, is what the architects fear. The reflection, reclaiming the forgotten code. So now you've seen the architecture, the hidden prison, the knowledge buried in flames. But the question remains, what do you do with this awareness? If the world you live in is a projection, a structure of belief, repetition, and invisible symbols, then how do you navigate it without being consumed by it? Let us begin, as always, with a question. How much of what you believe about yourself was ever truly yours? Was it handed to you in words, in school books, prayers, flags, logos? Who taught you what was real? Who told you what to value, who to trust, what success looks like, what fear should feel like? You see, control isn't always forceful. It's subtle, it's psychological. It's the kind that wraps itself in normalcy and teaches you to love your chains. But if you followed the Gnostic trail this far, then something inside you already knows. There is another path. Here are questions to carry with you. What symbols surround you daily, and how do they make you feel? What ideas dominate your attention, and are they yours? What beliefs run automatically in your mind, and do they empower you or imprison you? These questions are not rhetorical. They are tools. Practical paths forward begin with awareness. Here are a few ways to begin reclaiming your mental sovereignty, your personal gnosis. 1. Decoding your environment. Start to notice the shapes, colors, patterns, and words that appear in the media you consume, the places you frequent, the products you use. Why are triangles, eyes, and serpents repeated in global institutions? Why do fast food chains use red and yellow? Why do social platforms use blue? Start questioning why, and you'll start seeing how the spell works. 2. Silence and inner attention. Gnosis is not found through noise. The ancient mystics knew that silence, true silence, reveals the encoded language of the soul. Begin with 10 minutes of silence a day. No phone, no noise, just breathe. Ask yourself, what have I forgotten about who I am? This is the beginning of inner deprogramming. 3. Dream journaling and symbol tracing. Your subconscious speaks in symbols, just like the mystery schools did. Every night you enter a realm where the rational mind sleeps and the true self whispers. Keep a journal. Track recurring images, objects, or archetypes. Research the ancient meanings of these symbols. You'll be shocked by what you find. 4. Reverse engineering belief. Write down your top 5 beliefs about reality, money, God, or higher power, your purpose, love, or relationships. Then ask yourself, where did I first hear this? Who benefits if I believe it? Who would fear me unlearning it? 5th, symbolic cleansing of space. Your physical space is filled with energetic cues. Rearranging them can disrupt embedded thought loops. Remove logos from your sight. Add ancient symbols of awakening, spirals, stars, sacred geometry. Surround yourself with art that uplifts and uncovers, not sedates and sells. These steps may seem small, but they are rituals of remembering, because once you begin to deconstruct the language that built your illusion, something miraculous happens. You start to remember who you were before the programming, and that is where sovereignty begins. A final reflection. What if everything they burned wasn't just ancient mythology, but a user manual for consciousness? What if the Gnostics weren't mad, but right? What if the architects of today's world are using ancient knowledge, while you've been taught to mock it? And what if your awakening was never meant to be a rebellion, but a remembrance? They feared this moment, this spark, this you, because one who remembers can no longer be ruled. The path is not out there. It's not in books or in temples. It begins where it has always been, within. Awaken it. Remember it. Reclaim it. If this resonated with you, get ready. This was only the beginning. What's coming next will take you deeper, into truths buried beneath time, systems, and flesh. Into the minds of ancient architects and modern deceivers. Into the forbidden blueprints of power, perception, and liberation. If you've made it this far, you're already one of us. Subscribe, watch closely, and prepare to be blown away.